Greetings everyone, welcome to my Momiji guide tutorial. I'm Force of Nature representing top tier tips, and I welcome you to your prime spot for tips and tricks to help you level up at Dead or Alive 5. Well, let's take a look at everyone's favorite shrine maiden, shall we? Alright, so just a little bit about Momiji. I mean, yeah, she is technically a guest character from Ninja Gaiden. She's Hayabusa's apprentice. And, yeah, so Hayabusa taught her some of his fancy self-defense techniques, so we're gonna just go over some of them now. Alright, for Momiji, she's a character that specializes and excels at poking, footsies, keep out, and whiff punishment. I'll go over those four concepts in some capacity or in some way throughout this guide. Anyways, the main kind of consistency between her strengths is that they're all kind of based around defensive pressure. Defensive pressure is basically defensive pressure is essentially forcing your opponent to try and find a way to get their offense started on you, to try and do some damage to you, to try and get something going. If you're applying strong defensive pressure on them, what that means is that you're making it very hard for them to be able to damage you in any way. And of course, if the opponent can't damage you, they can't win the match. So obviously with Momiji, that is a very, very strong objective with her, a very strong goal. Alright, before I end up going forward, I just want to give you like a small disclaimer. If there's anything that I end up mentioning in this tutorial that you either don't know about or like are unfamiliar with or haven't heard, feel free to look at my other tutorials and top tier tips guides to see if you can end up finding any sort of assistance with your queries. Well, anyway, moving along. One of the more kind of standout things about Momiji is that even before you even learn how to strike or attack with her, her normal generic movement is really good. Like her back and forward, her creating backdash, all that stuff is really good. So, I mean, that's a huge aid to her footsie game, is that her movement is, I'll just say straight up, is some of the best in the game. I tend to use a lot of forward, back, so 6-6, 4-forward, of course, couple that with creating backdash, and look at that, she just like flies across the room, just goes back really fast. So yeah, that's one thing to end up looking at is her movements. Once you can get really competent with that, then you can really make a Momiji thrive quite well, and that's even before you even learn how to attack with her. Oh yeah, another tip also, if you end up pressing 4-4 like back, then you end up entering what's called the free step block back step. What that means is that you end up going into a stance where you're retreating backwards, walking backwards, and you're blocking all high and mid attacks. So that means that only lows can hit you. So if you end up, so not only is it kind of hard if you can end up spacing well, you can make it hard for the opponent to approach you. Like that's one way, because even if they end up attacking you, you'll end up blocking. And if they attack you with something unsafe, then you should be able to punish it. The most common way is with a forward throw. To complement Momoji's good back and forth generic movement, she also has a couple standard special movement options, like her 9P, which is also just called single jump. With this, there are a couple options out of it. You could do a couple high punches or one high punch. She has a mid kick. And she has a, if I can just get it. She also should have a high punch and a mid kick. There we go, like that. So yeah, so when you end up just messing around with Momoji's movements, also try and find ways to incorporate her 9P, and also the other direction is her 7P. This is used to end up creating space. I mean, it actually goes back quite a bit of a distance and tends to move Momiji into optimal spaces for maintaining keep out and maintaining her dominance throughout the neutral game. The neutral game, is basically an area that also that Momiji is really strong at. I mean, she has some of the best neutral game within DOA5 last round. So I mean, her poking, footsies, and all that is all really, really good. All right, so now what I'm going to do is just kind of show Momoji's different tools or different moves you can do within like certain different ranges. Like just for starters, to say that Momiji excels pretty much. She can fight at any range. She particularly excels at like mid-range to like long range, because she is probably one of the hardest characters in the game to approach. I mean, her keep out tools are really good. She can, because of her fast striking speed, she can fight in close range no problem. Like she has a 10 frame jab, 12 frame mid P, she has a 14 frame 3K, and 12 frame 2P. So I mean, with those tools, you can usually combat in close range almost any kind of character. I mean, obviously you have to be a little wary if your opponent has a 11 frame mid or a 9 frame jab. I mean, all that means is that you can't just go all aggro on them and like mash buttons or anything like that. I mean, even though they can apply for any opponent, but if an opponent does have a faster jab or a faster like 6P for instance, then you do have to take that into account and do have to respect it. I mean, and also Momiji does have what is generally just considered a DP move, or like a get off me move, in her 7K. Alright, this move is also a 12 frame mid that does about 38 damage. So if an opponent is trying to Abari you, or if you're trying to Abari them and they're trying to, like, let's say you do something that's like safe on block, like a 3PP. Like I can show you right now this move. Like here, 3PP is only -3 on block, so if you know the opponent's gonna retaliate with something slow, you could do 7K. Because if you're -3, your 7K would end up becoming 15 frames, and because it does 38 damage, it can actually counter hit a lot of things. Although with Momiji, I'm not really recommending that you be highly disrespectful with her, but if you end up knowing your frames well, then you can end up blowing up opponents that aren't really like paying attention to your frames and your speed, and you can end up sneaking in attacks like that. All right, but generally when it comes to like general approach, and also I'll just say another thing also right here, which may be to the chagrin of any of Momoji's opponents. Momiji has she has her jab string. Her PPPP is safe on block. Yes, it's only -3. So if you try and throw that right after, you're probably gonna get another PPP right in the face. So that's just something to keep in mind. The last 2 hits of PPPP is just 3 PP. So let's just carry on here. All right. So from mid-range to long range, with Momiji, the main tool you are going to be using is her 6P. Alright, this move here, as you can see, is only -5 on block. It travels a really far distance at about 2.3 meters, which is in this game is actually, for a 15 frame move, is really good. It's only -5 on block, but it has a follow-up that the opponent has to respect in 6PP. Like that, the second hit's a launcher, which ends up launching higher on counter hit. So I mean, but as you can see, on normal hits it could still launch reasonably high. You can get off a small juggle. So yeah, it is slightly delayable. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have that many delayable frames, but it is delayable. So although it's just -5 on block, it's really hard for the opponent to act on that, because they have to fully recognize that you're not doing the follow-up, that you have no intention of delaying it or anything. So I mean, This move actually could be a massive nuisance for your opponents, though. I mean, besides the fact that it just like goes across like the freaking screen, I mean, or hits, and you're basically in a decent position. So I mean, this is a really good safe poke for Momiji. All right, another poke you can end up using from a bit of a range is her 4-4K. This move is only -3 on block, causes a stun that you can follow up with on hit, so it causes enough stun for follow-ups. So this poke is really good. Because it leaves Momiji back turn, you can end up using a 4-4 just to get out of the way. So this move can complement a generous diet of 6-6Ps. Of course, so what happens is if you're here most of the time and the opponent ends up thinking that you're going to do 6-6P, they can just end up holding it. So in that case, you can end up using a poke like 4-4K, which ends up allowing for like a back turn 4P, or a back turn P, which are generally going to be your go-to options. There's also like back turn 2K, I mean if you want to use a low, but back turn P can allow for follow-ups, and back turn 6P gives you a sit-down stun, which can give you like a guaranteed 3P, which can have guaranteed and semi-guaranteed follow-ups. Like I'll end up going over this sit-down stun later. It's actually really, really good. It is one of the better additions that Momiji has received throughout patches throughout last round. I mean, this I'll say right now is, out of any buff that she's received, this is probably her best buff is to that move. So I'll go over it a bit later, because it is actually probably one of her better tools during stun. So I went over the pokes like 6-6P and 4-4K. Like those are good ones. You can even just poke with 4K, only a -5 on block mid kick. Right here, it doesn't really give you much reward if it hits. It can continue stun during critical stun after you stun your opponent, but this is mostly just like a poke. I mean 4K, it's a nice little tap. You can even use it as a round ender if your opponent's really low on health. Other ones, another mid kick you could use, 3K, which has a good follow-up that is delayable. Is 3K P. This is, I mean, I'll say it right now, that Momiji, compared to most characters, she actually doesn't really have that many delayable strings compared to most characters. I mean, she does have moves that are delayable, like, I mean, she does have a few, like, 6KP is going to be a common one, like KK or KP, so I mean, yes. So with compared to like other like string heavy characters, I mean Momiji is not as delay heavy. So the delays that she does has, you'll have to try and find a way to utilize them. So ones like 6BK or 3KP are good options. 3KP also allows you to go into her single jump stance. I mean, which gives you those single jump options that I showed you a little earlier. Because 3KP8 is pretty much the same as her 4-4P. Alright, I'll end up showing you... the attacks I ended up showing you were ones that are good for mid to long range. We'll continue on with another one. Alright, when your opponent is basically looking out for either 3-3 or 6-6P or a mid kick like 4-4K or whatever, then you can end up shaking out with a low poke. I mean, a big thing with Momiji is making your opponent respect 6-6P. What I mean by that though is like it's almost like you want them to expect it. I mean, no one wants to get hit by a 6-6P into Kingdom Come. So when they start respecting that, then you can start nailing them with low pokes like 2H plus K or 1P. I mean, 1P has 2 follow-ups too, so despite technically being negative on on normal hit. 1P has two follow-ups. So 1 PP, which causes a knockdown. And you could also get a cool some fire flame effect on it. This was another one of This is also another one of the changes to her moves that was changed throughout patches in the last round. And she also has 1P, 2K, which is an additional low. I mean, all these moves do have track-in capability too, just as an added benefit. And out of any kind of move that you can use around, let's say, like even around mid-range, this poke here, I'd say around now 3 PP. For this one, you can use this one more so around mid-range. You can even use it in close too if you so desire. I mean, 6 XP is quite safe, but as I might have showed earlier, 3 PP is only -3 on block. And I do find it kind of amusing when people usually go for a throw after this move. Then if they do that, I'm usually just going to do it again. I mean, yeah, I mean, when I am playing people, I do give them a heads up that, yeah, this move is only -3 on block, don't try and throw it. I mean, so it is really safe. So what the opponent's going to have to do is try and poke back quickly with like one of their quick pokes. Like, you're only really going to be poking back with like a jab, a 6P, or like a 2P, something like that. But alright, I'm just going to continue on. Alright, now that once you kind of approached and got into close range, with Momiji, generally in close, the tools you're going to be using, of course, is like your PP, your 6P, and your 2P. To try and open up your opponent, what you want to do is you can give them a healthy dose of 2P. Some people might call you a spammer for doing this, but this is a completely legitimate tool. Momoji's 2P is 12 frames on, well, it's 12 frames and it's just 0 on hit, but when you have a 12 frame mid, 0 on hit is perfectly fine. Because like I said, the only thing you would have to be careful of are opponents that have a 9 frame jab or 11 frame mid, because they would technically end up being at the advantage if you're both at 0. So yeah, I mean, it only does 5 damage, but if you just keep doing this, the opponent's going to annoy the hell out of them. Then there's eventually going to open them up for something. A tool you can use if you are going to be fighting in close range to try and open up an opponent, aside from throws, is trying to do a 6P, then delay into the K. Which is the same knee, well, it's a similar knee to her 6K. I mean, it's a lift stun. Gives you lots of advantage to be able to get off like pretty big follow-ups. So yeah, I mean, technically 6PK has even more follow-ups, but generally I recommend just sticking with 6PK. If they are attacking or doing something after even blocking 6PK, then you can do 6PKK or just go all the way fire. But going beyond that can be risky. Hell, if any of this is blocked, you are going to be unsafe. Like, you do have another option, 6PP, if you really know if you're conditioning someone with elbows. Then you can usually sneak in a 6PP, which gives you a pretty good stun, which allows you to get follow-ups like 3P. Yeah, so I'll even go over this a little now. If you do hit the opponent with 6PK, this can usually allow you to get some of your biggest follow-ups. I mean, you can end up getting a sit-down stun, or you can go for a launcher right away. Right there, I just showed like a few of her launchers on different hit levels. You can go for a 9K, which is also a really good tool. But yeah, I mean, although with Momiji in general, well, for how you're fighting with her, I tend to recommend maintaining a bit of a poking style. If you are in close, then don't bother really using strings too much. You're only going to be using 1 or 2 hits. I mean, yeah, I said before her PPPP is is safe on block, but of course that's highly telegraphed. She even technically has another mid-punch follow-up in PPP 4P, which can also cause a sit-down stun on counter hit. But if the opponent knows you're going to do that, you can easily hold the... Well, you can easily hold like the third or fourth hit, which goes high, mid. So, other than that, like don't really play a string style with Momiji. So just do single pokes, like you know, like punch grab or something. I mean, like I will say like which I also will go over a little later, is that with Momiji, she's actually somewhat reliant on throws for pressure because I mean, compared to most characters, she can't really pressure someone on block that well. So that's why out of her pressure tools, you have to probably be a little more reliant on just annoying someone with like 2P or something like that. So obviously, I mean, if you can like get the opponent respecting something like 6P, then you can like sneak in a throw or something like that. But yeah. But also another tool you can use in close, I mean her K, like KK, the initial kick is 12 frames, which is quite fast, so you could utilize this for a stun. You have two options, KK or KP. I mean, yeah, generally your jab is faster, so if you want to stuff people, I recommend the jab, but you obviously get a better reward if you hit someone with a K. If you think the opponent's going to track or you just want to simply intercept something, Momoji's H plus K is really good. It's not really a close range tool per se, even though it's at 12 frames it could be used as one. If you're using it in close range, it's mostly to stuff tracking attempts, like if the opponent tries to sidestep, so you can nail him with H plus K for a tiny stun on hit, which is pretty much just a frame advantage on normal hit. It gives you a stun that you can follow up with on a counter hit if I'm not mistaken. So, but yeah, this tool right here actually is really good. Like you know what? Actually, I'll go over this move right now. What this H plus K is primarily used for? It's basically Momoji's get the hell back move. If someone just runs in at you, swat them with this move. Like this move annoys the hell out of short ranged or stubby fighters. I'm not gonna name names, but you could probably figure out some close range fighters that probably hate this move. What this move means is that you can't run at me. Like no one wants to get swatted by this move. It's like swatting a fly. So, like this move is a big reason why it's so hard to run at Momiji. If you want to be sneaky, you can even like use her 7K. It technically is minus 25 on block. I mean, it used to be minus 14 on. It used to be minus 14 on block, but it was kind of retardedly, stupidly good when it was minus 14 on block, because that's minus 14 plus. That's it's minus 14 plus pushback on block. You see, from here, the opponent. If this was minus 14, the opponent pretty much wouldn't be able to do anything that would reach you. Now it's minus 25. Some characters can do attacks that can punish this. For instance, Ayane could do her cannon drill kick, her 236K, to be able to punish it, for instance. So essentially anything that would be about 23 frames and is able to reach the distance will be able to punish it on block. But even then, I mean, it is tough to roll punish or to punish this in general on block, unless of course you're looking out for it. So that's why this isn't as risky as some other characters' 7Ks. Like Ayane's 7K is like minus 30 on block, so obviously you'd want to keep that to a minimum. But Momoji's, you can use it a little more freely. I mean, yeah, it's another move that annoys the hell out of people. So, but yeah, I mean, you have these moves for keep out. And of course, if someone is running at you, you can intercept them with a 6-6P with your 15 frame mid. I mean, as I said before, I mean, 4-4K is also good at counter hitting people that run at you. Like what I said before is that these moves actually don't have that much risk to them. I mean, the opponent needs to be pretty on point to be able to punish them. I mean, you can't punish them on block, so you don't have to be able to punish them on whip. And with 4-4K, you can almost use that just for like some space control or anything like that. And of course, if you want to end up creating space, you always got your 7P right there. Alright, I'm going to go over some of Momoji's tracking moves right now. General, I find with Momiji, you don't really have to worry about opponents sidestepping you a lot, because in general you should be fighting around mid to long range. So around this range, you're not really worrying so much about getting your attack sidestep. Even something like 6 PP, the second hit actually tracks, because it's like her 236P. Alright, for general tracking moves, I'll just let you know right here. First one you have is your H plus K, your 12 frame tracking high. You have 4P, 14 frame mid. This track, this move used to be just -3 on block, but the Team Ninja made it -9 for some reason. I don't know why. This move is pretty much just a little track and poke. It doesn't really give you much on hitting. It does cause a small stun, but I tend to prefer 4-4P because it can go into our single jump stance. So you can mix opponent up if you can hit confirm, if you can score a hit. And of course you have the same single jump options that I mentioned earlier. Other tracking moves for Momiji, you can use her 3KP. The second hit, remember, is like her 4-4P, so the second hit tracks, and also because this is a string, if you delay it, the second hit can retrack into the opponent anyway. So yeah, you can use this against tracking. You have your 1P and 2H plus K will be your tracking low, so if you know someone can sidestep, you can hit them with both like 1P, 2K. I tend to like 2H plus K though. Despite being a good low poke and high crush, well, formerly a BS mid crush, but it's with this poke here, you can actually throw it out for relatively low risk. I mean, being a low, of course, an opponent can low crush it, but the thing about this poke right here is that it can actually only be punished in close range if it gets blocked. It's about -13 or -14 on block, but if you end up doing it from like tip range or like from like mid range, so like further out, if the opponent blocks it, they won't be able to throw punish it. So using this as like a tip range poke can come in handy. Not to mention it's something the opponent has to end up worrying about, because of course you gotta cover your ankles in order to defend against it. So the good reach on this move makes it a very, very handy low poke. Oh yeah, and another tracking move which also happens to be a guard break. Her 214 P plus K. Alright, this move, it is a little on the slow side. I mean, it's 27 frames, and it does give you +6, which is one of the few kind of guard break maneuvers that Momiji has. So it has a lot of recovery frames on width. Like you can see right there, it has 44 recovery frames, but it does give you +6. So I mean, it is an advantage move for Momiji. So that is another. So if you're looking for like a pressure tool, this is one you can use if you have the opponent locked down or a fair bit of an advantage, or you can even do it on wake up, for instance, like right after an opponent tech rolls. So you can use it as like a meaty attack. But yeah, I mean, her only other guard break, or her only other actual positive guard break, I think, is like stuff like her 6P KK. But just to know, it says +14, but you're only at +14 because of the follow-ups from your double jump, also known as a Tenku. I mean, there you have your fireball. It's another guard break, but it's only a -1 block. The Tenku K used to be a guard break that was like +7, but yeah, it kind of got nerfed to hell after throughout patches. So it is -2 on block, which is still obviously incredibly safe. But yeah, it's not advantage. I personally think it should be advantage, but I think it's just because they felt that the mix-up was probably a bit strong. So yeah, they end up not making that a guard break. So you technically don't have an advantage move out of double jump stance. All right, so now I'm just gonna continue on with Momoji's throw game. All right, she doesn't really have that many throws, but the ones, and I personally don't think the throws she has are spectacular, but they do actually complement her general playstyle, which is that her throws are good at kind of chucking the opponent around to positions that you would kind of like them to be at. I mean, obviously she has her neutral throw, which just kind of switches positions a bit, but she also has her 7-frame forward throw, which does a 53 damage. She has one in the other direction, her 4T, which is so basically you have a throw for like each direction. One of the throws I tend to like with her is her forward throw, or 6-6T, her 10-frame throw. This one here, it's pretty much very similar to Hayabusa's version of the same move. Like this move is kind of like a hit and run throw. Like with that throw, I mean, this is generally like your go-to when you just run at someone, like run up throw. I usually just use this and then it creates space. So obviously if you're able to nail your opponent with this, if you can end up locking them down and nailing them with this throw, then it creates a healthy amount of space, so you can keep up your space in footsie keep out game. And her 12-frame throw, alright, does about 62 damage. It reaches further than her other throws, but I generally just keep this throw just for getting damage. I mean, it's obviously your go-to throw for punishing hold attempts. So yeah, but other than that, I find Momoji's throws are somewhat average. She has her unique throw from her double jump stance. I kind of showed it before, where it just chucks the opponent into the air. Options you can do after that, if your opponent doesn't tech roll, you can actually just get in some cheap force tech setups with either 2H plus K or 1P 2K. But generally, most opponents, well, that are paying attention will tech roll that, so you're not going to get that much mileage from that. All right, I'll give you a little juggle from her jump throw. All right, this one here is a good go-to. What I did was H plus K, 6PK, and 3P, 4PP. So I'll just show it again. H plus K, 6PK, alright. H plus K, 6PK, 3P, 4PP. Alright, so that is a good go-to. You can, if you are finding that one too difficult, then you can do H plus K, 6P, KK, then H plus K, then 6P, KK, P. Right there, it does a slightly less damage, but it's also well, it's obviously easier to remember. If you do knock the opponent into a corner, let me just get Ayane over here. Alright, so if let's say you have to throw an opponent in a corner. Oh, I guess this one's a bit more dependent on space, but yeah, there's a slightly different juggle that you end up doing. Alright, let me just see if I can just find somewhere to be able to show it. Alright, well generally what you'll end up doing instead in front of a corner is 8P, 8P, and 6P, 6P, KKK. Alright, although it's kind of weird though, a lot of times it ends up giving you the space so you can end up doing the full juggle anyway, but it's just, if you think you're too close to the wall, then go for 8P, 8P, then the 6P, KKK. Alright, Momiji does have a unique throw for crouching opponents. Alright, she does have two throws. She has her normal 2T, but she also has her 1T, which can allow you to get off a guaranteed double jump K or Tenku K. If you wanted to, you can also do the fireball, but all it really lets you is give you a small force tech setup, which is a techable, so I don't really recommend that one too much. But yeah, sometimes it might be a little hard to remember, but it's best to go for the kick follow-up. See, from here you can end up getting various follow-ups. You can go for a launcher right away. I mean, it's a stun that grants you a lot of advantage, so you can basically follow up with like almost anything. But one of the special things actually about this throw is it allows you to get a guaranteed power blow. Like that's actually probably the handy thing and something I definitely recommend that you practice. See right here, especially in a stage like this on the Attack on Titan stage or on the Sky City Tokyo, you definitely want to see that nice sick ass animation you see right there where you see the big Titan just swats your opponent across the room, so being able to practice that is good. If you hold it too long, it will just be a guard break instead. I think it only gives Momiji plus 13, so you won't be able to. You only will be able to follow up with like a jab, I think, because there's like your 6P or 7K or whatever won't connect. So be careful not to hold the power blow too long. Alright, right now I'm just going to show a couple holds. Alright, the first one I'm going to show is Momoji's her mid-K hold. I mean, in general, her hold game, despite being supposed to be a jiu-jitsu practitioner, her hold game actually isn't really that spectacular. But her mid-kick hold is actually kind of neat though. So if you end up holding a mid-kick, you can actually get off a decent damage juggle. Unfortunately, the actual hold itself doesn't do much damage. But with this juggle, you can actually get off quite solid damage, like almost around like 90 damage, which is really good. Alright, so what I am doing off of that is KP. I mean, I'll just let you know it's all guaranteed. KP, 6BK, and 6B, another 6BK, 6B KKP. KP, 6BK, 6B KKP. So I mean, so anytime you get a mid kick hold, that is generally what you're going to be going for. Like right there is the recommended. If you want something slightly easier, you can forego the first part and just go 6B KKK or something like that. If you're in front of a wall, then the KP won't work as well. So instead, use H plus K. This is also guaranteed, because I'll show if you do KP, it ends up knocking the opponent down because K wall slams. So what I recommend is using H plus K, then 6B KKK. So just remember, it's if you have your back to the wall, the mid kick hold will switch positions. Then you'll use H plus K to wall slam, then just follow up with 6B KKK. Alright, I'll show you her low kick hold now. in itself, this hold is not necessarily that remarkable. You can just follow up with what you end up following up with is, I'll just show you, just P, 8P, then 6P, KKP. I mean, so not that hard to remember. The unique thing about this hold is that it guarantees a power blow just like her low throw. But yeah, but just remember, you only can do one power blow within a round, so you only get kind of one opportunity to hit that. Yeah, if you don't charge enough, you don't get the power blow. And if you charge it too long, then it'll be blocked, and you can still get off a jab, but of course it would be better to be able to hit the power blow. All right, now just to show for if you manage to back your opponent to a wall. Recommended moves for wall slamming would be your 7K. All right, on counter hit, then you can use H plus K as your high. K also wall slams, but H plus K does a bit more damage. You can do stuff like 6 PP, 3 PP, but you can also wall slam with 1 PP. So any of those options are usually pretty good to go with. An interesting thing is their 7K is actually unholdable. What that means is that the opponent will just do a little sidestep. They can attempt to do a throw punish, but it's something that can throw some opponents off. But if you actually end up doing a wall slam, then just do 8P, then 6P, KKK. I mean, you can be careful sometimes she does end up shifting to the side. I mean, if she shifts to the side, then it may be better to go for just a fireball, so you'll get around like the same damage even though it doesn't wall slam, and will keep the opponent right there. If you're on point, you could try and use a 4-4P and get like an extra, well, a little extra damage, like an extra 3 damage. But it does end up have a higher chance of Momiji end up turning off to the side. So, but either way, the juggles are quite similar. I prefer end up going with 8P because of reliability as opposed to 4P. So either of those options are fine. All right, now let's continue on just with a little bit about Momoji's stun game. What I just want to show you are some of her kind of useful stuns. I touched on it a bit earlier. Her 9K is really good. It ends up causing a stun that can have guaranteed follow-ups if the opponent is unable to stagger escape on fastest. If you hit this move, 6P is guaranteed. So if the opponent can't stagger escape on fastest, then you can end up getting a free, well, you end up pretty much getting a free juggle. Alright, I just showed you a couple right there. For juggles that you can do after 9K, the two choices you can do would be in the 9K, 6PP, 4PK, just ignore that. Alright, so what it is, after 9K, you end up doing 6PP, then do 4P8, PK, then you do 3P, 3P, 4PP. Yeah, I know it's it might look like a little bit to remember, but if you end up breaking it down, that'll be helpful. Another option you can do is 9K, 66PP, then 66K, then 6BKK, or 6BKKP. That option will give you an extra 1 damage, but obviously it doesn't wall slam or knock the opponent away. But of course, it's easier to remember, and you end up getting like solid damage for a single hit move. If you don't think that the opponent's stagger escaping at all, then you can end up getting a P plus K. Like unlike 66P, P plus K can be stagger escaped on fast, which is what most people should be trying to stagger escape on at least is fast. So if you end up trying to get a bit more swag, you know your opponent is a stagger escape, you P plus K, then 6/6 PP becomes guaranteed. Then you can just get you can go for a similar juggle, but with that added on damage. Alright, I ended up touching on it a bit earlier. A good sit-down stun you can do with Momiji is her 214 P. Alright, for this one there's also a variation called 214 P plus K, which gives you a double sit-down stun. It ends up it ends up running up the critical damage, so the critical stun gauge pretty far. Because after just doing 214 P plus K, a back turn 4P will put the opponent at red stun, which means that you can get a guaranteed critical burst. Alright, the move I just did right there is the recommended move after a critical burst, is her Izuna drop. So right here is generally in most cases will be the most damage you can get. It's also pretty awesome under a ceiling too. Like I'll just show you quickly. So you end up getting a little additional damage. Like I'll show you like the difference right here. Well, right there, I got 101 because it also got a wall hit. So normally under a ceiling you get 91 damage, but if we were to get that in open space. And normally it would do 67 damage, so that's quite a bit of additional damage if you end up getting it under a ceiling. So that is a pretty good go-to. If you do want to do a juggle, then you can end up doing what I just did right there. So after the critical burst, you end up doing a 236P, 44P, 44P8 PK, then end up with 3P, 4P. If you're in, like for instance in front of a wall, what you end up using instead is 236P, 44P, and 6P KK K. So yeah, 214P or 214P P plus K are really good. The moves are a little slow at about 23 frames, so it's recommended to either do it during stun, or if you know someone's running at you and they might whip something, or they're running at you with something slow, you can actually intercept them with that, but it can be a little risky. I mean, the move is technically only about the second hit is -6 block, even though it leaves you back turn. Yeah, but I mean, if you end up hitting an opponent with this, then it leaves you in really good position. Alright, I'll just show one other kind of big stun that Momiji can do. Although for this move, it's probably the least recommended of the three. Alright, this one is 6H plus K. Like I said, if you open up the opponent with 6PK, I mean that's the that is the recommended because of the good stun in the fact that the 6PK is a delayable follow-up. With here you can hit a 6H plus K. This is assuming that the opponent is not slow escaping like too fast. I mean, this move is a little slow at about like around 26 frames, but it can guarantee a 3P or a 6P, 4K, so stuff like that, like quick pokes around like 15 frames or faster, so yeah, if you do hit 6 6-6 H plus K, you can use like 3P or 6-6 PP. Be careful with 6-6 PP that the opponent can hold the second hit if they're on point, even like during critical stun with a critical hold, so sometimes you might just have to go for a single hit follow-up. I'll just give you another one also, like if you do hit with 4-4K, I already showed what you can do with 4P. You can get guaranteed 6P. Uh, 3P unfortunately might be too far. So 6P is usually your best bet, or 4K for follow-ups. I mean with 4-4K you can also go for 6-6P, 4K, or you can launch right away with 8P or 8K. Careful that something like 6-6K doesn't quite connect. So if you want a mid follow-up, you'll generally have to go for 4K. But I usually just do 6-6 PP unless the opponent can hold the second hit, then you just do a single one, then just go for a different launcher. Anyways, that is it for now. Alright, I'll just give you a bit of a recap. Alright, the main thing which I really want you to practice with Momiji is just kind of getting used to her movement and footsies. The general range I want you to be fighting at Momiji with is around mid-range to long range. So basically a range is that where you can harass opponents with 6-6P or 4-4K, and anytime when they come too close, swat them back with H plus K or even 7K. Alright, so I mean Momiji is highly recommended for kind of beginner and novice characters, but she does have the tools also to fight at a highly competitive level, so don't be kind of deterred by her relative simplicity. I mean, obviously having good spacing and good footsies is obviously a skill that requires a lot of development, and even the most skilled players will always be looking to hone that skill for mastery. Anyways, that's it for now. If you have any more questions, feel free to contact me on Free Step Dodge as Force of Nature, or on my YouTube or on my Twitch. Any of those places is good to contact me. So I just want to thank you for watching today. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time on Top Tier 2.